Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019 City Council meeting. At this time, we'll have the invocation. Please come on up. Everyone join us in that, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, we thank you for bringing us safely to this new day. Thank you for our beautiful city of Tyler and everyone who lives here. And I give you great thanks for the Tyler city government and ask that you be with our mayor and this city council today. I pray for the agenda set before them today and pray that you give them wisdom to deal with all the issues presented to them. Pray that you give this group a sense of the welfare and true needs of the people of Tyler, keen thirst for justice and rightness, and the ability to work together in harmony and personal peace and joy in their lives. Lord, guide them to be the leaders our community needs. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have the minutes from the August 14th and the August 28th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Warren, a second by Sellers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. At this time, we get to come down and recognize 85 years worth of service to our community.
That's not how the rest of the day's going to go. At this time, it's a real honor to be able to introduce 85 years worth of service to the community. First is Cassandra Bridger.
We didn't hear that.
20 years of service to the city of Tyler.
She's not really that old right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Here's your red. Yes, we can. Thank you. Brenda Choi at the library, 20 years. Congratulations. Yes, ma'am. Kedrick Trimble, CFO for 20 years. Congratulations. And Mamie Johnson, Parks and Rec Department for 25 years. Congratulations, thank you. Here we go. We really appreciate the service of these four individuals to our community. And the council is
always partial to Cassandra, but she sits up with us at all times. So we're not gonna. I'm not gonna say anything else. I'm not gonna try and embarrass you or anything like that. And then Kedrick Trimble. We also work very closely with him as in the budgeting process. And I will say that he does a fantastic job for this community. And he represents y'all's departments very well when he comes forward with us to make the case on the financing of the City of Tyler. So we really appreciate your hard work. Thank you. Man, that was a way to clear out the room, wasn't it? Wasn't bad. At this time, we'll move into the zoning items for the day.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. This first application is for a request for a closure of an unimproved portion of Delmar Street and Juniper Lane to replat the rights-of-way for the development of a gated duplex community with 26 units. I should note that during the Planning and Zoning Commission, they did vote for the closure. However, the approval of the gated subdivision was denied. So we're moving forward at the request of the applicant on the closure of the streets, as there are some topographical challenges in this area, and when maybe a new request comes in to develop this site, the configuration of the rights-of-way or maybe a gated development with private access will have to be adjusted. Any utilities present in the rights-of-way will require dedicated easements at the time of a replat. And as I said, on October 1st, the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public meeting on this request. It was heard along with a Royal Hills case for a gated subdivision. There were 7 neighbors that spoke in opposition to the subdivision, and some were located outside of the 200-foot mailed notification area. The opposition stated that they were against the duplex type of development amidst the single-family dwellings that are within this area. The commission denied the zoning case and approved this right-of-way closure. Of the 10 notices mailed, no notices were returned in favor, and 4 notices in opposition to the request for the closure, with a total protest of 3.46%. The opposition stated that the closure would cause traffic congestion and decrease in property values with multifamily units among the single-family neighborhoods. That was, again, in relation to the proposed development that was also presented at that time. The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a 7-0 vote, recommends approval of the closure.
But at P&Z, the road closure was a separate agenda item than the
Yes, sir.
rezoning.
Yes, sir.
And it didn't seem like for the road closure that there was opposition to that as
Right.
much as it was for the development.
Correct.
Okay, so do I hear,
I move to approve Z1.
Second.
motion from Warren, a second from Sellers. Any other discussion on the road closure item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
This is a request to change the zoning from an adaptive reuse to RPO, Restricted Professional Office, for the use of a hair salon that has more than 2 chairs. The adaptive reuse AR district does allow for up to 2 chair salon. However, they want to have a salon that has more than 2 chairs, which would necessitate this request. As you can see on this map, the area is surrounded by a mixture of RPO, Restricted Professional Office, which are developed with offices and single-family homes, and also R1C, which is a single family that allows for garage apartments, and a church, as well as a law office. So it does have a mixture of office and residential uses in this area. This would amend the future land use guide from single-family to medium-low density to office. And as per the UDC, AR allows for the maximum of the 2 chairs, and again, this request would grant them the ability to have more than 2. They do have the appropriate parking for this area, for this type of use. And of the 12 notices mailed, 1 was returned in favor, 0 in opposition. The Planning and Zoning Commission by a 7-0 vote recommends approval.
Questions of Heather on this item?
Now, I believe this was a law firm before.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve Z2.
A motion from Warren, a second by McKellar. Any other questions first? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. C3?
This applicant is requesting a change in order to develop and operate a donut shop at this location off of Paluxy near the Cumberland Academy High School. The applicant is appealing a denial of this request from the Planning and Zoning Commission. To the north and east are zoned planned multifamily and are the location of an assisted living facility. To the west is zoned agricultural and is the location of single-family homes. To the south is PCD and R1A, which is owned by Cumberland Academy, and the PCD is retained there at that intersection to allow for signage for the school. So there's currently no development on that site, and there's no associated site plan with the PCD. It's simply there to allow for signage. If this request were granted, it would amend the future land use guide from single-family medium-low density to neighborhood commercial. And as you can see on the future land use map, we have single-family to our west, and we also have single-family around that property where we have Cumberland Academy because schools are allowed in residential districts, and we have multifamily where the assisted living. So there's what you see on our future land use guide is residential, and there's no commercial on the future land use guide within this area. So the request is in conflict with the future land use guide, which does not show any type of commercial or even office land use at this location. You start to see office uses further north. The proposed use of C1 is not compatible with the surrounding uses. In 2014, the property to the south was zoned to PUR planned unit residential, or from PUR to R1A, and that's where you see the Cumberland Academy here on the aerial. The final site plan for the PCD that I mentioned earlier has not been approved, and again, that was simply for signage. There were 5 notices mailed in opposition, and none were returned in favor. 2 notices were returned in opposition to the request with a total protest calculation of 14.92%, and the opposition stated the zone change would cause additional traffic congestion in this area. The attorney for the applicant contacted us on Monday requesting a public information request for the staff report and the meeting video from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we are working to respond to that request.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Yes, the attorney for the applicant has requested a public information request for the staff memo as well as the meeting video because he was not in attendance at that meeting. And he's also requested that this item be tabled at this time. However, it was a published or noticed meeting, and we have to carry forward with the hearing today on this item, and with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission by 7-0 vote recommends denial.
Yeah, and we don't have any cards on that request today. Is anybody here representing anyone on that? Okay. Any questions of Heather, other than the fact I would tend to support the P&Z Commission's recommendations on this item?
And did
Personally.
we not deal with recently traffic issues at this school?
Yes, ma'am.
So has that traffic issue been addressed? Do you see that it's going to be a congestion of traffic?
This certainly would not help the existing congestion. However, when we're reviewing this particular case, we're looking at there's no change conditions in this area that would support the request to change this zoning to a commercial use, as it is in conflict with the future land use guide, which is predominantly residential, and it would just be one portion of commercial within that residential area.
Do we have the option to table, and what is your recommendation with regard to that?
The council has the option to make any final approval, denial, or table. That is up to the council's discretion.
Okay, I'm comfortable with denial on this.
I move to deny Z3.
Second.
A motion by Sellers, a second by McKellar. Any other questions, comments? All in favor of denying Z3?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Z4?
This next item is a request to rezone from C1 neighborhood commercial to C2 general commercial along South Broadway. This is located just south of the intersection of Fifth Street and Broadway, and south of the Jack in the Box restaurant. To the north is zoned C2, and that is the location of the restaurant. To the south is zoned C1 and C2 and is developed with offices. To the east and west are zoned C1, neighborhood commercial, and is the location of a children's learning center and CVS pharmacy. If this request were approved, it would amend the future land use guide from neighborhood commercial to general commercial. And again, I should state that this item was also denied at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's here before you on appeal from the applicant. And as you can see here on the map, this area is also included within the Azalea Residential National Historic District. It is represented in that kind of pink color there. The applicant is requesting the zone change in order to allow for a tattoo studio. The surrounding properties are developed with light commercial uses, which are consistent with neighborhood commercial zoning. The C2 would allow for outdoor display, and that is something that we don't see in this area, nor does the future land use guide support outdoor display. And by that, I mean you could have car lots and other types of uses that are more intense than a neighborhood commercial use, which is what you are starting to see as you approach this residential area, as well as entering into the Bergfeld area. So these are really more commercial, light neighborhood commercial uses, light commercial. And those commercial uses do allow for that transition as you enter into the Azalea district as well as Bergfeld area, and that's a more appropriate transition rather than having those more intense commercial uses that would allow for that outdoor display. Of the 19 notices, none were returned in favor or in opposition, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, by a 4-2 vote, recommends denial.
By 4-2.
Yes, sir.
We do have 2 cards on this. Any questions of Heather first, or would you like, let's have the 2 folks from the community come forward. John Scritchfield, please come, state your name and address, please, and 5 minutes.
I'm John Scritchfield. My wife Cindy, and I'd like to read a statement, if you don't mind.
Sure,
I'll read it
please.
real quick.
Sure, that's
within
fine.
5 minutes.
Okay.
Good morning. My name is John Scritchfield. My wife is Cindy. Thank you for seeing us this morning. I would like to open the statement with the fact that we're attempting to bring a tenant into Suite B at the 1721 South Broadway address. In doing so, as well as you know, I'd like to correctly adhere to the Zoning Commission's wishes, and we have addressed the Zoning Commission for change to C1 to C2 status. We're here this morning to uphold the wishes of the Commission, are inclined to whatever decision you decide on. If you will allow me, I have 6 definitive reasons, positively prove we should be allowed to switch the President C1 to a C2 zoning. Our first submittal to the Zoning Commission was previously turned down for the reason that if it were to sell the building or now or 20 years in the future, a member of the Zoning Commission was concerned that it would turn into a used car lot. My understanding is that there was no other complaints and concerns brought forward for the first meeting, anyone else attending to the meeting. Furthering statements made during the meeting consisted of positive reinforcement towards a prospective client, was to copy the Suite B 1721 South Broadway address. My 7 proposals presented today is to allow us to overturn this change. Number 1, if you would refer to the map, there's already a C2 building to the south of C1721 building, as well as the C2 building to the north of the 1721 building, and we are encompassed within the C2 zoning already on both sides of us. Number 2, again, if you please refer to the same map, you'll recognize that we are 69% of the area listed within the circle. We own the school, we own the building behind the school, we own the building behind the 1721. We own the whole block except for Jack in the Box. Number 3, our request was to zone all of the 1721 building, which consists of 5 suites plus a building 107 behind it. My proposal is that you would allow us to rezone just Suite B. Number 4, I would also like to propose an alternate for C2 zoning to be listed as a special permit, if so be it. Under this contention, as owners, Cindy and myself would be allowing the C2 at Suite B to be allowed for a period of time that this occupant is in the space and within the option to renew as long as she is there. At the point of termination of the lease, the agreement expires, is not renewed, we would sign back the C2 to a C1 zoning, and we would put this in writing. It would return it to the status quo. Number 5, if we were ever to sell the building, we would agree in writing, we would return the C2 back to a C1 zoning, therefore allowing the commission to keep things the way they would prefer it. This is the whole building, we would be rezoned. Number 6, we have found that there are 2 other businesses listed as tattoo shops in the city limits of Tyler, listed and zoned for C1 in the city limits. Number 7, after we filed the proper rezoning documents, it was discovered the name was changed from Permanent Makeup Inc. and Some Tattooing to a tattoo parlor. After 3 phone calls to confirm, it was discovered, posted, it disregarded all attempts to correctly identify the business and classify it the way they saw fit. Now I'm going to let my wife speak, if you don't mind.
Do I get my 5 minutes? I'll be less than 5, but
Sure, go
because I'm on the card.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Cindy Rudd. Just want to thank the Zoning Commission, they've been trying to work with us. John just mentioned that they called us 3 times to clarify the kind of business that we want to put in there. Some of you have known me for a long period of time, and my husband here is not a tattoo parlor. It is an ink, permanent ink. I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hands. Permanent ink would mean eyebrows, eyelash, eyeliner, lip, that kind of thing. This young lady wants to do things right. She wants to do it with class. She doesn't want to be a parlor. She doesn't even have the name of that on her signage. Will never be tattooing. Most tattoo parlors are kind of in indiscreet places where people sneak in, and usually about midnight is when they close. This young lady would like to do it during the day, so women and men can go in during the day and get those procedures done. This young lady is so wise that she came to us and said that this is the kind of thing she wants to do, and of course there might be some tattooing done, but she wanted to do it right. She educated John and me on the fact that you're supposed to have a special zoning. I honestly would not have known that. We would have blindly done something that we should not have done. And in talking to her, she said to us, we want to do it what's right too. All of us are here for that reason. So John and I are here trying to figure out how it can be in harmony, where we can work together to make this happen. And I originally was working with the zoning commission, John and I on the phone, and they kept asking, do you want the whole block or do you want just the suite? What is it going to cost? It's going to cost $550 times each one of those, so I thought throw it all in together. That's the reason for the whole block. And if there's a concern about a car lot being put because there's a C2 over at Jack in the Box, and there's a C2, I think at a small little, it used to be a satellite, it's very small little corner spot. It used to be a confection type bakery as well. Anyway, if there's a concern, we're going to take the whole block and have it be a car lot. We want to assure you that's never going to happen. We have too much invested in that corner already to make it a car lot. So given that, again, we want to do the right thing. If we could just request maybe just Suite B, either a special permit for a couple of years or change just the C2 for Suite B because it's encompassed, so there's no other way you can get around doing something outside because it's in the middle. That's our request for today.
Great.
I'd like you to know about her as well. We've been talking a lot about Jenny. She's a hard-working young lady. She only has her degree, but she's now going back to get her master's as well. So she wants to do well. And John and I like to support our employees, our friends, people that want to do right, that want to actually work and make Tyler better and be entrepreneurs. We want to support that because somebody did that for us. So again, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. We do thank you guys too for everything you did.
Thank you. Heather, would you come back up? Special permits?
Yes. We don't have a special use permit
process for
that
that,
would, right, that would allow for a tattoo studio. And to clarify about the tattoo studio, as far as the definition, if there are any tattooed, the traditional type tattooing that we're familiar with, that has to fall into that category. When we first started working with the applicants, we tried to get clarification because I believe that the application stated permanent cosmetics. And we have to be very careful. In the past, we've heard various things from art studio to permanent cosmetics, a various number of descriptions for tattooing, the performing of that service. And because of the various zoning districts where these types of uses are allowed, we wanted that clarification. And because it was described to us as that it would be half permanent cosmetics and half, the traditional tattoo art, it had to fall into the tattoo studio use, and therefore requiring a C2 zoning. The use, as far as C2, it requires 14,000 square feet of land in order to obtain that C2 zoning classification. So it's unlikely that just that one bay could be rezoned. I do not think that it meets the 14,000. It doesn't appear that it would, unfortunately. We couldn't set a time limit on the amount of time that it would retain a certain zoning. Once it's zoned, it retains that zoning.
Now, what is the zoning for the Children's Learning Center?
That is C1.
C1?
Yes, ma'am. And permanent cosmetics, and another reason why we were very interested in exactly what they were doing is we also wanted to determine whether or not they even needed the zoning change request, because permanent cosmetics is even allowed in office zoning, because it's considered a salon type use. So we tried to find out if they even needed the zoning request.
Yeah.
Are there more cards, or is that?
No, that's only 2 cards. I would, just a thought that comes in my mind, I don't think C2 should have been allowed on that other corner either, right, 6th Street and Broadway.
You know, to speak to Mr. Scritchfield and Ms. Rudd, this is the district that I represent, and I've received some phone calls from constituents that are outside the 200-foot notification area. And while you make very convincing arguments for what you want to do, you know, I've got people that are saying, we don't want to really enter the Zaya district and be going by a smoke shop and a tattoo shop. And I have to listen to what they're saying, and I agree with the mayor, the satellite dish thing that's on the opposite side of the street. I'm not sure how it ever got to be C2, but it probably shouldn't have become C2 because it's kind of an eyesore, and it's just not a good entry point to the National Historic District that Heather talks about. So to me, it's just, I love the whole entrepreneurship deal. I'm behind it 100%. I just don't think that this really is the right spot for this business. Just my thoughts.
Is that a motion?
I didn't know if anybody else had anything to say or not. Mayor, I make a motion to deny Z4.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from McGee. Is there any more questions of Heather? We have a motion and a second to deny Z4. All in favor of denying Z4?
Aye.
Opposed? Then the motion carries. Z4 is denied. Z5?
This next request is for a zone change in order to allow for commercial uses on a property located at 3309 Seton Street. It is requested to be rezoned from R1B, a single family, to C1 neighborhood commercial. To the north, east, and west are all zoned R1B single family, and they are developed as single family homes as well as undeveloped land. To the south is the location of a Family Dollar and is zoned C1. This request is consistent with the future land use guide that identifies this area as mixed-use center, as you can see here in the purple. The applicant is requesting to allow for a bath and body shop and other commercial uses, and staff did support this request as there is a proposed future extension of Town Park Drive and is located at the northeast corner of the subject property, as you can see here on the map. The extension of Town Park Drive is ranked 50th on the CIP, the Capital Improvement Projects listing, and of the 14 notices mailed, 0 were returned in favor or in opposition to this request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, by a 7-0 vote, recommends approval.
So this will be on the south side of the future street.
It depends on the ultimate alignment, but right now, our master street plan alignment, which it can shift, is located to the south of the subject property.
And some of that right-of-way has already been purchased, correct?
Yes.
Is that the part that you
Oh,
have?
yeah, that weird kind
Yeah,
of
that's already been
shape
purchased.
to the, yes, that's to the north, yes.
So how close is this to the dollar store?
This is just north of the dollar store.
About how far?
You have a photograph?
Well, I can't tell you exactly.
Yeah, so the dollar store's right there.
Yeah, you can see it right there at the corner.
And so there's an, and we don't have any cards on this. So describe the use again to me.
They described it as allowing for a bath and body shop and other commercial uses.
Questions? Broderick?
I haven't. Move to approve Z5.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a motion by McGee, a second by Sudduth. Are there any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. On to 01. You're doing that as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Good.
My last one. This is a recommendation for various additions or changes to fees related to plan review and applications that are performed by the Tyler Development Center. These changes are an attempt to partially recover costs that are provided through services provided through the TDC. This is a chart showing some of those requests. They're more than half of them are actually new fees for services that were previously provided without any cost recovery. And to go down the list, we have an administrative alternative compliance review for this is requested at a proposed rate of $80. There previously was no fee for this review. And this is similar to the type of work that would be done for an administrative site plan review amendment. And we're proposing that fee be in line with that type of review. So this is where maybe someone wants to come in with a different approach to screening, fencing, or typically for mechanical equipment or parking lot screening, which provides maybe sometimes an out-of-the-box approach, and we have to do a review to make sure that we're being consistent with the Unified Development Code, and we're able to work with applicants to accomplish those goals. The next fee is for a UDC amendment request, and these are requests that are outside of our normal biannual review. We do collaborate with the development community and others for UDC amendments that are recommended as part of that biannual review. So this particular fee is not associated with that. This fee would be anything that is outside of that biannual review process, where maybe you have an applicant that is trying to do something that is inconsistent with our current UDC, and they are on a specific timeline and they need their item to be processed independently of the biannual review, which would require, staff research that is very similar to processing a zoning case. And therefore, we're recommending a proposed rate of $500, which is consistent with our zoning case processing rate. We have a change to our existing master street plan amendment fee, which is currently $100. We are recommending that fee be in line, again, with our zoning case request applications, which are set at $500. To allow for that type of work to be performed and analyze those master street plan amendments. Those amendments do not happen often, or the requests for those amendments do not happen often, and we wanted to make sure that they are in line with cost recovery. The zoning verification letters were the fee was last updated in 2010. I believe it was from $20 to $25, and we're recommending to update that fee to $50, which is in line with what we see with the fee across the state. It's more in line with the fee that is set. And we receive approximately 150 of those requests a year.
And who are the people requesting that one?
Yeah, it's typically, we see those from banks and lenders to verify zoning whenever they're considering any kind of loans or real estate transactions.
Okay.
The next three fees are currently services that are being contracted for review, and the proposed fees are intended to recover the actual cost that the city has incurred for these reviews and are comparable with what other cities charge for these services. And those include a traffic impact analysis review. We currently did not have a cost recovery for that item or the FEMA map revision review item. And then for our subdivision infrastructure review, we were charging $500. However, again, we do contract that, and it is my understanding that the minimum that we are charged for a subdivision review is $1,000 from our consultant, and so there certainly are instances. As you can see, we calculated that $1,114 to be the average cost. However, there are instances where we're actually being charged more than $1,000. So again, this is an attempt to recover at least partial cost recovery on these items, and still be cognizant of what other cities are charging, and not overburden the development community as we try and seek cost recovery. In speaking with members of the development community, I did receive some feedback about some concerns about some of the charges, especially with our system, our electronic system, and having to submit them with credit cards. And I did find out that we can change that where they do not have to use a credit card. If that were to maybe max out their procurement card, maybe max limit for the day or the month or whatever they have is their limits, and so they can come in and pay with checks. And so that should not be any kind of issue moving forward for our community in order to pay for these fees. Also, it was recommended that we consider an expedited subdivision infrastructure review fee or service, and that's something that we would like to add to our next biannual review to look at, what could we do to offer that service, and what type of fee would be required to offer that service so that the development community could enjoy an expedited review fee or a review in matters where they are on a limited time schedule, and we'd just like to see how we could make that happen. And with that, the planning is recommending this as in association with our budget that was previously approved, and these items were outside of that to analyze these and bring these towards before the council for your for your approval.
So that's all on this 01, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there's no other items. Yeah, one thing that I think all of us in the room and everyone that's here today knows this, but just to add a comment, is that the development community pays for your department.
Yes, sir.
So the people that are using the services are also ones that are paying the fees.
Yes, sir.
And so I think that's one thing that when people see that you have this development department over here, then the P&Z and the review department, that the taxpayers are paying for it, but it's really the development community that's paying for it. And one thing that I find amazing is really the developers are paying for all the cost of the development as well, the infrastructure, all the engineering services. So when new development show up, not only are they paying all your fees, but they're also paying for the complete development. And so there's so many professional service firms that work along with those developers, and they make up part of the developer roundtable, so they're all familiar with the fees that you're charging, so it's not like a shock to them. But it's interesting how the development community is really paying the fees.
Yes, sir.
And for all the development. So yeah, at that, I'll entertain a motion if there is one to pass this, or if there's any questions.
Did the development community participate in the structure?
No, ma'am. What we did is when we were working to prepare the budget for development services, which includes, as the mayor stated, planning, engineering plan review, building inspections, the building plan review, these items were looked at to as an opportunity, because we were previously, for more than half of them, not charging for any cost recovery. But what we did is we did reach out to individual members of the development community to get their input, and that's where we heard some of the concerns, and we did address some of those concerns, and we plan to take that idea about an expedited subdivision review at a later date through our normal process, through our developers roundtable, our unified development code, because the code requires currently that any text amendments have to go through our Planning and Zoning Commission. However, we are going to take an amendment through that clarifies that, because fees are really outside of that purview, because it's really about making text amendments. And as we state in almost every one of our Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, when we're talking about financial matters, the council has the ultimate control over those matters. And in the future, we plan to take these fee adjustments with all the other fee adjustments that go through the normal budgeting process. And we also, in conjunction with that, will try to plan our biannual review that is timed with our budget process, so that we can go ahead and bring those ideas and those proposals through that process as well.
The reason I asked a question on the zoning verification letter, for the folks that are just maybe trying to get a refinance or something that is affecting the homeowner, instead of actually looking at a whole new development, that's where I get concerned with fees, where the people that are the homeowners that are coming in to request some services. The development community, as you plan to put a project on the ground, it's not surprising that these review fees need to be in place for us to have our cost recovery.
Yes, sir.
So I would get more concerned with making sure that in the future that when we're dealing with homeowners, that we just keep fees very reasonable.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But just to piggyback on what you're saying,
Sure.
I really don't think that the majority of the people in the city realize that the fees pay for that department.
Right.
And if you don't have cost recovery, the numbers don't work.
Correct.
So all this makes pretty good sense.
Yeah,
So I move to approve 01.
Second.
Motion by Warren, a second by Sellers. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. R1. Thank you, Heather.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is a request that the City Council consider adopting a resolution authorizing the filing of one application for the East Texas Council of Governments for a regional solid waste grant, and authorizing the acceptance and use of any grant, if awarded, authorizing the acceptance of any increases in grant funding levels, and authorizing the Solid Waste Department to take all actions needed to receive and expend grant funds. If approved by City Council, the city's solid waste department and Keep Tyler Beautiful would apply for $14,000 in grant funding to be applied to host a household hazardous waste collection day in May of 2020. This is the paint collection day that Keep Tyler Beautiful hosts every other year. During this event, we collect latex and oil-based paints from any Tyler citizens who choose to come by and drop it off that day. And we contract out the services from an environmental services agency to have that paint properly either recycled or disposed of. According to the grant application criteria, a resolution authorizing the application must be approved by the governing body of the applicant. So it is recommended that the City Council consider adopting this resolution.
Thank you. Questions or a motion?
Move to approve R1.
Second.
Motion by McGee, second by Suddeth. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
I get to talk to you about the next three resolutions here this morning, and they all focus on the consent decree and are all part of the consent decree. The second resolution is a proposal for an engineering services contract with Adams Engineering. And what we propose to do with this work and have asked Adams to work with us on is to head up our private lateral program. If you guys remember, part of our consent decree work is a reduction in I&I, infiltration and inflows into our system, and the private laterals are a big portion of that. And so this is a sticky, potentially complicated topic because we're dealing with lines that are not the cities. So we need to investigate the different options that are out there, look at what other cities are doing, how are they paying for them. You know, so there's some potential grant funding in economically challenged areas. So there's a lot of pieces to this, comparing the cost of those pieces, putting together different proposals. If we go this route, this is the result, so on and so forth. And the template that we're going to be developing and looking at ultimately will obviously be carried on through the rest of the city. So we're going to start here in Basin 8 and 15 where we've already got data, already done smoke testing, have a good cost estimate from Jim Forbes and Pipeline Analysis. And then we want to see how that actually works, how it actually implements whatever we decide and you guys approve in the future, and then ask them to manage this program going forward. So another portion of this is we've got Group 1 work that they have participated in the design of, and this is the open cut package, and we're going to ask them to provide the construction management services. So this is something that was previously being done through LAN, but since Adams has basically done the design work themselves, we're going to try and contract, or we'd like to contract with them directly for these services. So that's what this engineering services proposal is for this R2, and our recommendation is that you guys authorize the city manager to execute this contract in an amount not to exceed $425,000 with Adams Engineering for the private lateral program administration, design and resident project representative services for consent decree Group 1 projects, and then of course we approve a resolution reserving the right to reimburse these expenditures.
Questions?
Move to approve R2.
Second.
Motion by Sellers, a second by McKellar. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. R2.
Thank you, and here we are on resolution R3. This is asking you guys to confirm the bid for the point repair gravity main rehabilitation package. So again, these were our lines that were reviewed in basins 8 and 15 there. You can see them in the center. And just a quick review of this Group 1 work that we're continuing, and we're finally getting to the end of these packages, or toward the end of these packages. You can see the previous 2 packages there for manhole work, how they've come in under budget, and we are working right now on the western seal. The eastern seal is soon to start, and we will have all of the manholes being sealed throughout the city. The repair and replace package, we have decided to go the route of our maintenance contract with that. The 91 minor repairs there that we've already done some work on, they have come in less expensive than the budget that we had anticipated. So we feel that these 324 additional repairs will likely follow that same tack. So that's why we've decided to go that route. We are talking, we've also approved CIPP and pipe burst packages that have also come in under the anticipated cost estimate. This point repair package was 147 point repairs on, I'm sorry, those were 147 lines with point repairs, a lot of point repairs in this particular package. And based on the engineer's opinion of probable construction cost, that package has come in at almost 18% under budget. The contractor these are the 4 contractors that turned in bids for this work. 3 of those contractors are from the Houston area. The first 3 there, T Construction, Lopez, Texas Pride, and then we had a local bid from AAA, and that's how they fell and how they rank. So the first 3 were very close. The last one was a little bit more, but our recommendation is that you authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with T Construction to do this point repair work.
Any questions?
So none of these bids were local? Or the last one was local?
The last one was local, yes, ma'am.
Well, kind of like the mayor, I like to see things kept locally when we can, but if there's 3 that evidently it's a difficult project.
Yes, there are, again, a number of point repairs throughout the Basin 8 and 15, and some of them are in the street, some of them are next to buildings. There's just a plethora of different situations that take place here.
Yes, I always like to see the local firms receive the work to be done and accept their bids. However, if it's 21% higher, that's not the best fiduciary responsibility that we have. So generally, if it's a very close number, of course, I would always like to support the local construction industry. However, on this, I would say that we need to take the low bid, as long as you have reviewed and know that they are qualified.
We feel that they are qualified. We've vetted them and asked questions, and they perceive or given us a perception that they reviewed the plans and did enough site visits to feel good about their numbers.
Okay.
It's a lot of money to go out of town.
I understand.
I move to approve R3.
Second.
Motion by Sellers, a second by Warren. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
And the final resolution here is R4, or at least the final one that I'm going to be visiting with you about. This is for the open cut part of the main package. So this is, I've abbreviated this a little bit. This last item, the open cut package were identified early on by LAN. They differentiated, we could replace a pipe a number of ways, point repair being one. I mean, not point repair, pipe bursting being one, but they identified that almost 4,600 lineal foot of line to be replaced via open cut, just due to whatever the situations were, their proximity to other structures, the number of service taps that they'd have to dig up and replace anyway, whatever their criteria was and discussions that we had, they felt that this was the amount that should be done in the open cut package. I just want to point out that of that 4,583, this first package, it had to be broken up because almost 1,500 feet of the open cut were underneath homes or the corners of structures. So obviously we want to be very, very careful of pipe bursting, something like that, so, or even open cutting. So we're doing some rerouting, and we've got designs for that, and they're pursuing easement acquisitions. So there will be another open cut section of work here. So this first section, what was bid was 2,917 foot, or 2,920 is what was out there on advertised. So about 1,500 more feet is yet to come. We did have a local low bidder on this one, Reynolds & Kay, at 1.6, and then we had a second bid again, from the Houston area of almost 1.8. So these bids were close, within 10%, so it makes us feel good about the numbers. And therefore, we're going to recommend that Reynolds and Kay receive this.
Now, the open cut project, how long does that last?
The projected cost, I believe the timeline we gave them was 150 days in the contract.
Okay. And open cut, there will be, this will be the most disruptive
Yes.
to the traveling public and to people in the areas that this is going to occur.
That's right. The directives that we set out for was to do as much as we could with pipe bursting, just to minimize
for the
that.
cost as well.
And then, of course, relative to how much it's going to cost and the dangers. You can do pipe bursting and heave the ground, and then you're right back to having a disruptive situation.
Right. So just let's make sure that we are doing very good notification to the neighbors and to the public, right? When if you're starting to tear up some streets or going to go into somebody's front yard, let's just make sure that we do good, proper notice so there are no surprises. It's definite work that we must complete. But let's just make sure that we're doing very good notifications to everybody, okay?
Noted.
Okay.
Move to approve R4.
Second.
Motion by Warren, a second by Sudduth. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. R5.
Mayor, Council, you have item R5 before you. It's a request the City Council consider and approve a resolution authorizing an engagement agreement for bond counsel legal services associated with utility-funded debt issuances with Norton Rose Fulbright, U.S. LLP, and other matters in connection thereof. Norton Rose Fulbright is our bond counsel, and they've, as long as I can remember, they've been our bond counsel here at the city, and they've done a great job for us. And generally what they do is they help us prepare resolutions, ordinances, all of the paperwork to closing paperwork on our bonds, anything that needs to be filed with the Attorney General or Comptroller, they handle all of that, and much more, of course. So just some of their cities that they work with around the state would include Plano, Garland, El Paso, Grand Prairie, Austin, McKinney, Hurst, Euless, and Bedford. And their fees are in line with market. Now, the reason why we're bringing this before you today, because usually when we do these bond issues, their fees are paid at the time that we do closing. So it's not like we're writing a separate check to them. However, the 86th legislature, House Bill 2826, requires that this contract be approved in an open meeting, and so that's why we're bringing that to you here today. Having said that, it's staff's recommendation that this resolution authorize an engagement agreement for bond counsel legal services associated with debt issuance with Norton Fulbright, U.S. LLP, and other matters. So it's our recommendation that we approve it. The fees are attached in the ordinance on new issues. You got a base fee of $10,000, and then $1 per thousand based on principal from that point out. Right. So.
Okay. Any questions of Kedrick? Yeah, I was wondering why this was on the agenda.
Yes.
So that's the explanation. So thank you.
Move to approve R5.
Motion by McGee, a second by McKellar. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
M1.
Good morning again. This item M1, I did not prepare a presentation for it. It's a request to approve payment of $94,954.07 to AU Shoal for 6 creek crossings that were repaired under their maintenance contract. These creek crossings were identified as being potential issues for SSOs, so we proactively had them repaired and shored up before we had a problem.
We like the word proactively. I like that. Because that's what I'd like to see.
Move to approve M1.
Second.
Motion by Sellers, a second by Sudduth. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Consent decree, thank you. Consent decree. I'm sorry. No, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Consent agenda.
Move to approve as presented. Second.
Motion by Warren, a second by McGee. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Chief, you going to do the city manager's report?
I will do a short one if
Okay,
you don't
good.
mind.
Yeah, go.
Okay, Mayor, we want to give kudos out to the Tyler Fire and Police Department. They teamed up together in an appreciation, first responder appreciation tournament at Latoya University in Longview over the weekend. And so this was a collaborative team of both fire and police officers on the same team. And in the final game, they beat Longview Fire PD and won first place.
All right.
So that was really good. We also want to say that we had a great time last week with the sister city, Yachio from Japan, and of course the mayor was there. We had a good time. They got to enjoy the Rose Festival proceedings as well as some comic relief to the contingency here on Friday night, as well as some great time had. Good hospitality from here in Tyler with that group. Also, recent rains has delayed the Southside Park grand opening, so we're looking at Saturdays in mid-November for that. Remember, this is an all-inclusive park where challenged children can also play at this particular park.
That's gonna be great.
Also, kudos to the Tyler Fire Department for the response to Walmart over on Monday evening where we had the tanker catch fire.
Right.
They provided a quick response, and the fire service would call that a good stop.
Yeah.
And so they mitigated the fire and kept it from going further and causing any further harm to Walmart there.
Right.
And also, we'd like to say tomorrow is Council Members McGee's birthday, and we want to tell him happy birthday.
Oh, that was
29, right?
29.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Councilman Warren. I was not at a lot of the Yacho City events. I met with them Wednesday night. I went to Parents Weekend for my daughter, so Councilman Warren took over and did a great job.
And I think we should
Entertaining.
thank the chamber and some of these ladies here in the city who worked hard. It was one of the most organized, and I've been involved over the years with the sister cities, and it was very organized and lots of fun for those folks. So thank you for
Thank
all
y'all
the
very
work that you
much.
did last week.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
good little Japanese. Konnichiwa. Y'all know what that is?
So at this time, we're going to recess for executive session. Executive item number 1, under Texas government. I'll be official for you. Under Texas Government Code Section 551.072, real estate deliberation regarding the following. Discuss the purchase, exchange, sale, lease, or value of real property, the public discussion of which would have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the city. And one thing that I would like to state is we have had this on the agenda for the last several meetings. It is just on one item. There's not multiple items going on in the community. It's just this one item we continue to deliberate. And we may have a solution after this meeting. We may not. I don't know. But at this time, we will recess for executive session. Councilman Sellers had to leave. She had a business appointment. At this time, we're returning from executive session, and it is 10:50. And at this time, we do have action item potentially coming out of the executive session. The city of Tyler has remaining property that was purchased downtown many, many years ago, commonly referred to as a King Chevrolet property. There were a few other locations that were also bought by the city years ago. We have sold part of that property in the past, and now we're considering selling the remaining portion of the land that we own in that current tract. At this time, the city has contracted with a broker, Range Realty, to sell 7 certain tracts of real property that the municipality owns. This real property has been listed for over 30 days with a multiple listing service, which has produced a willing and able buyer. And it would very easy be more than 30 days. I think it's been many years that Range Realty has listed this piece of property. And we have 2 contracts that we are looking at approving today if council does make a motion. And when we do so, we have another party that does have a first right of refusal on portions of this property. That's why you'll see we'll have a contract number 1 and a contract number 2. The contract number 1 will be subject to the first right of refusal, and we'll make, if there is a motion and it passes, then we will notify that other party to allow them to exercise their first right of refusal or not. So at this time, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I request that the city council authorize the city manager to execute a contract of sale with TD Land Management to sell 7 certain tracts of land, which include 3 lots located on West Ferguson Street and 4 lots located on West Irwin Street for the purchase price of $325 per foot, or $479,922.30.
Second.
I have a motion by Warren and a second by Sudduth. Are there any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that I gladly vote on this because Irwin Street bears my 5th generation grandfather's name.
Well, that's
I
awesome.
proudly say that I vote for this.
Great. Okay, so now we'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And so at this time, we will, we have authorized the city manager to work with Deborah Pullum and the real estate brokers to continue completing the contracting. Now, just as a note for the media and the other folks that are here, this is saying that the project is under contract. That is not a completed sale until you go through the process. And this is the buyer in the audience. We wish you the best of luck on the project. It will be a great addition to downtown, and thank you for your interest. Are there? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And with respect to what Mayor advised about the contract number 1, which has the first right of refusal option on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Our office will now make notice to the holder of the first right of refusal prior to council acting on that. We'll wait for the appropriate time frame for their written response. And we'll bring that to you, bring that back to you later.
Correct. And I like your new glasses. So are there any other necessary items to deal with on this topic? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.